Welcome everyone to Leaderboard 101. Today we're going to be learning about player progression and replayability. So we've got a really exciting workshop here for you. Again, I'm MikeyAce. I'm a 3D artist, world generalist. I'll be joined today by GausRoth. He's a master game designer. So the agenda, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about player persistent variables, PPVs, which it stands for. We're going to be talking about leaderboards, and then GausRoth will be giving you a live demo you don't want to miss coming up shortly. So let's get started. So you'll ask yourself, like, what are player persistent variables? I've heard this term used before. Maybe I'm aware of it, maybe I'm not. So imagine you're playing a video game, right? And you're going through a level, you're collecting a bunch of points, and now you leave the game, you come back, and your scores are deleted, right? They're gone. You go from 100 points to zero. And now the player's upset. They're like, I got to start all the way from the beginning. Well, that's where player persistent variables come in, because if you save it as a PPV, player persistent variables, it will save to your player's profile. So now when they score 100 points or 10,000 points, what have you, they leave the world, they come back, and they still have their points. So everybody wins, everybody's happy. And so that's really the gist of player persistent variables. You can save variables, and we'll get into different things you can save. But just some examples for here. You can track their score, some XP, coins, fastest times if you have a racing game. You can also create a leaderboard data with these PPVs where you can track daily visits, how many times your players has entered your world or visited your world. You can do visit streaks. You can also use it to unlock content. If you have different abilities that they can unlock or items, this will keep track of everything they have unlocked, or has not unlocked yet. You can also use it to reward your players for returning, giving them bonuses. And like I mentioned, this really increases replayability. If your players can come back and feel like they have something to work towards and it's being saved, they will continue to come back to try to earn more rewards. So it will definitely increase your retention. Cool. So now that we know what PPVs are, how do you set them up? Like I mentioned before, GausRoth is going to be doing a live video showing you how to do this in Horizon Worlds desktop editor. But here's a couple of slides to kind of get you started. So in the Worlds desktop editor, you'll notice right at the top left, there's these menus up here. We're going to hit Systems menu. And again, you don't have to follow at home yet, unless you want to. We're going to go to Systems, and we're going to go to Variable Groups. So you'll notice that you first have to create a variable group before you create a PPV. So what a variable group is, it's kind of like a folder that belongs to your world, and you can name it whatever you want. In this case, you'll notice here we name it World Variable Group, right? And once we name it, it's a variable group that you can use to store persistent variables across your worlds. So if you're creating a world right now, it will belong to that world. But if you have other worlds that you create, you can actually share this variable group with those worlds. So you can share cross world variables. So just know, give it a name that you will remember. Maybe naming it after the name of the world would be probably the best way to organize it. And then you would hit create. So that's the variable group folder. Now inside this folder, this is where we're going to be storing those player persistent variables. So you would go here up to the top. Now you're in your folder called World Variable Group. You would hit the plus sign, and it opens up this menu now. And you'll notice here it gives you an option to create a player persistent variable. And this is where you can get creative. What are you going to name it? In this case, I named it points. And you'll notice that you have options to name it either a number. It could be, keep in mind, player persistent variables could be different data types. So they could be either a number, and that could be like a score, a time, what have you, or it could be an object. And objects, PPVs, are structured data, and and it's a little bit more advanced, but I'll give you a quick rundown. It's a structured data that's could be 10 kilobyte limit of JSON data, and it consists of strings, objects, numbers, booleans, an array that belong to that player. So keep in mind, you can track their score as a point, or you can track more information about them. Like I mentioned, strings, objects, numbers, booleans, arrays. So it gives you that option to save different types of data types of your player that, remember, will save every time they re-enter your world. So in this case, I'm naming it points, but I highly recommend you may have 10 to 20 even maybe hundreds of variables that you're saving. Be descriptive as possible. If I have a lot of games in my world and I have this one called points, I might not know which game points it's pointing to. So if I have a game where it's laser tag points, I would name this laser tag points. So I know exactly what PPV it is. Remember, you always want to be as optimized as possible. I highly recommend naming this so it's easy for you to see what it does later on. Now we want to create a leaderboard. So now you have these numbers, these PPVs, they're saved somewhere in Meta. We know they're being saved, but how can we show them so that players can see their scores? Well, one cool thing is we can display them on leaderboards. And I'm sure you guys have all been to worlds where there's leaderboards. And I know it's a lot of fun to challenge your friends and be like, hey, look at my score. Can you beat it? This is one great way for you guys to drive retention or having players just have a lot of fun trying to challenge themselves. Leaderboards are amazing. I use them all the time in all of my worlds. So how do you create it, you might ask? Great. We're going to go up to systems again. And this time we're going to go to systems. We're going to hit leaderboards. And when you hit leaderboards, it's going to bring up this menu. We're going to hit this plus sign. And now we have this create leaderboard option. We can give it a descriptive name. Remember, you can have up to 10 leaderboards. So give it a descriptive name. You can call it leaderboard or, you know, darts leaderboard. Give it a descriptive name. And then we're going to be going into different options that you can choose. So as you saw on that last page, the leaderboard gives you different options. So one thing you're going to notice, it's going to ask you, do you want this leaderboard to be ascending or descending? And a lot of you may not know what that means. So I have a pretty cool picture here to describe what it does. Descending really means the highest scores go first. Majority of your games are going to be descending, where whoever gets the most points is going to be in first place and everyone is going to be under. So as you can see on this leaderboard called weekly items found from one of my games, the person who collected the most items is in first place, right? If I would have chose descending leaderboard, that means the person with the lowest score is going to be on the top. And you might ask yourself, like, why would you want to do that? Isn't that backwards? Well, I'll tell you. Also, in the same game, I time people. I have a timer. How quickly can they get to these items? And if you can find all 5 items, we stamp your time. And obviously, if you find it the fastest, which means the lowest time, then you are in first place. So you'll notice here, this is ascending, and this is the lowest time. I found it in 1 minute and 9 seconds, and now I'm in first place. So there, Horizon Worlds gives you options. You can choose descending or ascending depending on what type of game that you are making. And just know that you can also do raw value and time in seconds. So this would be like a raw value where it's a whole number. And this would be time in seconds, which would be minutes and seconds. And I have a little bit of code up here. I'm sure GausRoth will be covering more of the coding stuff. But, and again, don't get scared with coding. This reads pretty simple here. When the leaderboard, we're setting the set score for player. And right here, you'll notice all the way at the end, it says false. This is what overrides your score. And just know that if you keep this at false, it will keep the best score based on whether you configured ascending versus a descending leaderboard. And we can get into that later, but just know, depending on what you set this to, it will always keep the best score. So let's go to the next thing. While you're creating your leaderboard, another option, we covered the name, we covered the sort order. Another thing is called reset frequency. You might ask yourself, why would you ever want to reset a leaderboard? And let me tell you a fun little story. I had a leaderboard in one of my worlds, and it started, people were coming every day, and it started getting crazy. The top 10 had over thousands and thousands of points. And I had a lot of new users and new players coming in and be like, hey, I can never get in the top 10 because I have 0. I'm starting off at 0. I will never get to the top 10. So why even try? So Meta has come out with this new feature where you can reset your leaderboard, and you can see it here either daily, weekly, or monthly. And what's cool about this is you can reset it weekly. That means scores probably won't get to the thousands. Maybe they'll stay they'll hover around 50 to 100. So if a new player comes in your world, they're not going to see 1,000 points in the leaderboard and be like, I might as well not try. I'm never going to beat that score. Now they might see a score like 10 points. And now they might be like, you know what? I have a couple of minutes. Let me see if I can beat that score. So what I like about this is that it really keeps a level playing field so that everyone, if they're, regulars or new users, it keeps a level playing field that everybody has a shot at getting in first place. Everyone has a shot to get to the top 10. So what you can do is you can make these PPVs that reset to 0 daily. You can do a daily competition. Hey, everyone, every day we're going to be doing a competition where the leaderboard will reset every single day. Or you can do a weekly one, or you could do a monthly one. It's up to you. This really helps community engagement where everyone, even new users, which is very important. You're going to get a lot of new users, especially with Christmas time coming around the corner. You're going to have a lot of new users. This could really help engagement and build community. So definitely take advantage of doing that. And also, I also recommend to have two player persistent variables. And what I mean by two is you don't want to have one persistent variable. Let's say I'm going to use laser tag as an example. So if I have a laser tag score and I reset it every week, right? That means I will never know how many points I've scored all time. So what I would recommend is have two variables, one that's called all-time points and one that's called monthly points, right? And the one you reset to 0 every month would be the PPV called monthly points. The one that's called all-time points, you never reset. So therefore, if you have another custom UI in your world where you can show player stats, they can see all their stats. They can see how many times they visited the world, their all-time laser tag points, and they can see everything they've ever done because that number does not get reset. But the PPV, the other PPV that's called monthly PPV points, that one you can reset monthly. So a little trick, a little tip that I use so I get the best of both worlds. So now that you want to reset one of your leaderboards, PPVs, now you want to select it. So earlier we showed you to make that folder called world variable group, and we created one variable called points. So you would see here, we're enabling it to reset weekly. And now we're selecting that we want to reset a PPV, and now we have to choose it. So now in this case, I will choose points. So now you can see a pretty much finished leaderboard here that just shows you it's a leaderboard. I just named it leaderboard. Very bad name. Give it a good name. Because remember, a lot of players are not going to read instructions in your game. So they're going to see a leaderboard that says leaderboard, and they're not going to know what it is. Is this counting my visits? Is this counting if I find things? Give it a descriptive name. If it's laser tag leaderboard, boom, just write laser tag leaderboard. If it's collecting items in game, just name it that. So players, when they look at it, they'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. That's the daily visits. I get it. Be as descriptive as possible. A lot of people don't read rules, but they will read the name of the leaderboard because they want to know where they are on that leaderboard and they want to know what that leaderboard is about. So now you would hit create. And now you have a leaderboard that you set up in systems. Now, how do you show this leaderboard in your game? Well, very simple. We're going to go to the build menu now. We're going to go to world leaderboard Gizmo, drag it out, and now you'll have different options that you can use on this one. So you can see here, it comes up with this panel. And now that you already created your leaderboard in systems, we can hit this drop down and select the one that you just made. And you can see here, you can make it a static leaderboard where it just hangs on a wall, it doesn't move. Or you can even make it a billboard one where it kind of twists and turns with you. So if you have it up against the wall, keep it as static. And that's right here, UI anchor style. But if you kind of have it like in the middle of your world, it will actually rotate with the player in a billboarding style, which is pretty cool. You might want to try that out. Just know that that option is there. Also, another cool thing you could do with the leaderboards, you can customize the color. So let's say you have like a nighttime world and it's really dark. You probably don't want this bright leaderboard. You probably want dark mode. But maybe you do want the bright thing just to say, hey, listen, this is a leaderboard. This is important. We want you to see it. We want it to stand out. Just know that you have a choice. You can go to dark mode or you can go in light mode. Also, you can change the size, how many players are shown on the first page. As you can see here, it defaults to the top 5, right? But you might want to see a top 10. I prefer the top 10 because I know top 5 is very difficult to get into. If people can just play as many times as they can and try to get into the top 10, it's going to make them so happy to get into that top 10. So it's really up to you. You can change it to top 5, top 10, really up to you. Also, like we explained before, you can show numbers in whole values, like I showed here, just like numbers 13, 8, 5, 5, 4. Or you can do it in time and seconds, and that's where you would change it here. Raw values would be whole numbers, or you can change it to time and seconds. If you have a game that's a race and you're capturing time, you would change it to time and seconds, and that's where it would show down here. Cool. Lastly, this is a new one. So a lot of you may not know about it. I didn't know about it until rather recently, but now Meta is slowly rolling out this update. So you may or may not have it yet, but eventually we all will. I happen to have it on my account. So you'll notice now some leaderboards will show on the bottom, share your top score. And you might ask yourself, like, what is that? What is that? Looks cool. Well, I'll tell you today what it is. So if you press it on, if you're on your mobile device, right? It will come up with this little icon right here, and it will tell you, hey, would you like to share your score on this leaderboard on Instagram, on text message, on Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, or you can copy it, probably paste it on other social medias. And if you send it to someone, this is what it looks like. It's going to send a picture showing your score. It happened to be I was in first place in one of my own games, and it shows my score, and it shows what game I scored this in, and it has a go button that if I press go, it will take me right to that game. This is great, great, because now if you're playing a game, if it's one of your own or a game that you like Super Rumble or Super Strike, you can say to your friend, hey, check out my score, send it to them on social media or via text. And now it immediately sends them a little note like this where they can click on it and join you right there. And it's perfect for marketing. It's perfect for setting up gaming opportunities. And now it's all on this leaderboard. All you got to do is go up to a leaderboard, press share your top score, and now you can share this with your friends. So again, if you don't see it right now, it's updating, it's rolling out slowly, this update. So eventually you will. But if you do have it, I definitely recommend you take advantage of it because this is a nice feature. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to GausRoth. He's going to be giving you a live example of one of his awesome public assets that you can download today for free in the public assets. So I'm going to stop sharing, and GausRoth, this floor is yours.
All right, cool. All right, so I have released a public asset for leaderboards. And if you want to follow along or if you're interested in using it, you can go to the asset library, go down to creator, and then just type in my name. And then it's this leaderboard one here. When you pull it in, it kind of explains how to use it, but I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to turn this off. And in order to get this to work, we do have to create the PPV and we do need to create the leaderboard. So I'm going to go over that quick. It's like Mikey was saying, go to the systems, we go into our variable groups, and we're going to create a new variable group. I'm just going to call this leaderboard workshop. And we're going to go in. So yeah, once you're inside it, you can create variable, and I'm just going to call this one visits. We're just going to create a basic visit counter. And then once we have our PPV, we're going to go to leaderboards, create a new leaderboard, and I'm just going to call this visits. It's going to be descending because I want the highest number above. We're never going to reset this one. If you wanted to, you could change it here. And if you're going to change it, we can give it a PPV, but we're not going to go through all that. We're going to hit create, and then it should show up here. And then we need to pull out the gizmo. So we're going to build gizmos. We're going to find our leaderboard. We're going to bring it into the world. I like to scale these up because they're tiny. Make sure that we set our leaderboard to our leaderboard that we created, visits. I'm going to leave it as 5. We're going to leave it as static. I like dark mode. Hurts my eyes. The light mode does. And now we can go into the script. Now I have 3 scripts, but we're going to go over setting up the PPV first. So we're going to go into, there we go, bring my code over here. So I got a lot of comments in here. It just kind of goes over what everything does. So we're going to, first, we need to set our PPV name and our leaderboard name. So the best way to do that is we're going to go back into the editor, go to systems, variables, click on this, and then we have this little copy button here, which we can just then paste it right in there. Very easy. And then we did name the leaderboard visits. But I need to always grab it. I can't type it in because I'm going to forget that or spell it wrong or something. So it's always best to copy and paste. And the reason I have it up here is that if you use it more than once, it's always best to cache the value, whatever it is. If you're using it more than once, always cache it. That way it makes it easier to change it. Now I only have to change it here the one time. That's why I put it at the top. It's easy to find. I don't have to change it 3 or 4 times down in the script somewhere. Now, this script requires that we have a reference to our leaderboard. So we need to make sure that that is set. So we're going to go to our TypeScript demo empty object and make sure it's set. It is set. And this is going to happen when a player enters the world. So we're going to connect to the CoBlock event on player in a world, and we're going to have it call on player enter world, which is a custom function that I created to handle all the logic. We don't need to worry about start. So when the player enters the world, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we actually did set the leaderboard manager. Because if it doesn't, then we can throw an error and it could be a problem. So we check, and if it's not set, we're going to throw a warning, and then we're going to return, preventing the script from continuing. It won't crash through the world. We won't get an error, but we will get this warning saying, hey, set the leaderboard. So we need to then get the player persistent variable for that player. So we're going to set visits to our visits PPV name for that player. We do that by this.world.persistent storage.get player variable, the player reference, so the player from up here, the player enter the world, and then our visits PPV name that we set up here. So this will now set visits here to whatever that value is. All PPVs start at 0 if they're a number. So we don't actually have to like set it to 0. It's always initiated at 0, sorry. Then we're going to increase our visits, and then we're going to then set our PPV to that new value. So this.world.persistent storage, set player variable, the player, the PPV name, and the value of visits. So if we came in and we've been here 5 times, now it's 6, our PPV will now be set to 6, and then I have a separate script that handles all of the leaderboard stuff. So depending on how this script is, so if both scripts are server script, we don't need this network event here. We can comment that out. We don't need it. However, if say our leaderboard manager is going to be a default script because it needs to be a default script to handle leaderboards. Now, since we're doing PPVs here, it has to be a default script because we don't have access to those values. But you don't need to have a PPV to set a leaderboard. It could be just a regular number. So in that case, you might have it on a local script. And in that case, you would want to send a network event instead of a local event. So that's why I have both here. So we're only going to go over one of them because they're the exact same. Just one's a local event, one's a network event. So it's this.send local event. We're sending it to the leaderboard manager that we set in our props definitions. It's a new local event that requires a leaderboard name, which is a string, the player variable, the score, which is a number, and then an override, a Boolean. So if you remember from what Mikey was saying about how to set them, these are all the requirements that a leaderboard needs to be updated. So then we tell it that we're going to send it to the set leaderboard event on the other script. And the values are visits leaderboard name, the player that entered the world, the player's visit score, and false, because I do not want them to override. Now, if I wanted it to override, I could change that to true, and then it'll override for me. Now, this will then call a script, the leaderboard manager here is going to call this function set leaderboard. Now, this has got a lot more comments. It's a lot more complicated because I have extra functionality for code blocks and for network and local events. So I'm going to cover the local event first, and then we can worry about the code block stuff. So down here where we have our connect local event. So we're connecting to it. It's this entity because it's on this object. We're setting it to the object holding the script. And we're requiring the leaderboard name, the player, the score, and the override. It's the set leaderboard script or function, sorry, method. Functions are outside the class. Then we have our variables here, and then we're sending them to the set leaderboard method. And if we come down here, this is our set leaderboard method. And all it does is it calls this.world.leaderboards that set score for player with the leaderboard name that was sent, the player that was sent, the score that was sent, and the override that was sent. I do it this way because I don't have to worry about this and all the different scripts that deal with leaderboard values. I can just send it over here and it'll just work. Now, this is the exact same function that gets called with a network event. So our network event, so say this is on a gun script that's local to the player. And the projectile hits an enemy and you want to increase points. So all right, the guy was hit 10 times. You don't need a PPV for that because we only care about stuff that is happening within a specific fight. So that could be a local event. So or a network event. So you're going to send with a network event and you're going to connect with a network event. All the values are the same, except for this is a network event and this is network event. Everything else is the exact same. And then it'll call this function just like the other one does. So that is network events. Now for code blocks, it's a little different because in code blocks, if I show you, when we send an event with code blocks, you can only send 3 variables. So a leaderboard requires 4, so I have to have 2. So I'm sending one with an override and one without an override, so I have 2. So in your code, you would just determine that, and then you would send one or the other. But this is all the code blocks that is needed for this. Is just this send event here. So we're sending to set leaderboard with or without override to the leaderboard manager with the string name, the player name, and the value. And it's going to be different. It's not visits because this is something I made for testing a long time ago, but it would work if it was the proper name. Now, if we go back into our TypeScript where we can handle custom code block import and connecting, let's see leaderboard manager. So we have to connect to 2 separate code block events. And it's on this set entity because it's, again, we're sending to the script that's on this object. It's a new code block event, and we have to declare the leaderboard name, which is a string, P for player, and score for number. We don't do the override because one is already hard-coded to do one, and the other one is not. And then we have our prop types for string, player, and number. We have the leaderboard name, which is string, of type string, P for player, score for number. And then we call set leaderboard override or without override. And both of these work. You can either do it like this or you can do it like this. They should both work. I don't know why I kept them in there. But, and then they get called down here, set leaderboard without override or with override, and it's the exact same thing as this. This.world.leaderboard, set score for player, leaderboard name, P score. And this is where we hard code false or true. And that is the leaderboard manager script. And I think that is all I have. Oh, if we want to test it, we can enter the world, but there is a little issue right now as they don't update in edit mode. So you do have to, what time is it? We do have to go into preview mode, and it should update if I put in the proper names. So now it should say I have a visits count of 2. If it loads. Yep. So now I go over here and I can interact with it, and I have a visit count of 2. I do not have this share button ability, unfortunately. I was not one of the lucky ones to get it, like Mikey was. But that is all I have for the live demo.
So what I would recommend if you're new to leaderboards, definitely check out his script. Just pull it out into your world, read the readme first script that's attached to it, and just follow those directions. Just go to systems, create your leaderboard, create your variables, connect them, make sure the naming convention has to be exact or it won't work. Just a heads up. So if something's a capital and you make it lowercase, it will not work. So like GausRoth mentioned, copy paste goes a long way. And thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a nice day, everyone. Keep creating.